Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. The former Prime Minister NAWAZ Sharif spoke today, and he talked about the corruption, that the cases of corruption that have been concocted against the PMLN and its leadership. He was quite categorical when he spoke about, of course, Rana Sanaullah's case also. He also spoke about other mega scandals and corrupt cases of corruption that had been fabricated by the PTI leadership, the victimization of he himself, his family. He spoke in detail about the kind of narrative that has been earlier put forward by Imran Khan and the PTI. We'll be talking about the ramifications of these new developments. Of course, the Daily Mail also, its apology, and the effect of this as far as the PTI, its voter base is concerned, as far as overall their narrative is concerned, as far as the PMLN is concerned. We've seen the case against Rana Sanaullah, which the Prime Minister also has tweeted about. He's saying particularly that is one of the cases which is an example of how to what level the former Prime Minister and his government had gone, to the scale to which they went to concoct cases against the PMLN. We'll be talking about that. He also spoke about the efforts of economic revival of the PMLN earlier on in government. He spoke about the status of economy, overall the state of economy that the PMLN had left the country in when the government, according to him, and he spoke about this also, was maneuvered and given to the former Prime Minister. All of that today on Perspective. I have with me today Shahzad Fatma Khwaja, who's an MNA with PMLN. Thank you for being with us. We also have with us Barrister Yasir Latif, who is a legal expert. Thank you for joining us. And Agha Ikrar Haroon, who is a political analyst. Thank you for being with us. Ji, Shahzad. Right. Before going to Shahzad, Yasir, overall, of course, we've seen the case as far as the Daily Mail story is concerned, the apology is concerned, and the way that it was politically used is one thing. But legally speaking, in your opinion, how do you look at it, in terms of course, there are some delays that the PMLN leadership also spoke about of course, the way the case was filed, the way that it was pursued, all of those things. How do you look at this particularly?
Are you talking about the case that is there in
the apology that the Daily Mail has tendered to the Prime Minister?
Well, as far as that apology is concerned, I think it's very clear that ultimately what's happened is that Daily Mail has realized that it can't defend the allegations in court, and Mr. David Rose doesn't have the evidence that was required as to prove that it was indeed a truthful claim, because truth is a defense against defamation. An allegation of defamation. So what's happened here with respect to, there has to be an out-of-court settlement where they've decided, Daily Mail's like, we're going to take this off, we're going to take the article off.
Because they realize they don't have the kind of legal backing, or their case isn't strong enough to be pursued.
Exactly, exactly. And that has to be it. And there's no other way of looking at the apology. They wouldn't have apologized had they gotten any source or evidence for their claim. And they were under, there was a danger of them actually, basically get their noses cut off, in terms of, in a very legal way. So I feel that as far as the apology is concerned, it is quite clear that this was a victory for the Prime Minister, and it was a victory, and it was a vindication. It was a vindication for PMLN, what PMLN has been saying for all these years. I mean, what happened with this particular case, the whole allegation of money laundering and the laundering of the funds, this allegation to me didn't make sense from the word go. So this was entirely concocted. They even, the fact of the matter is that the earthquake came in 2005 when the Sharifs were out of the country.
And the way, okay, let me come back to you before I go to Agha Haroon Sahab. We have Shahzad Fatma Khwaja with us. Shahzad, can you hear me? Shahzad? No, I think there's a problem. Agha Sahab, politically, the fact that, the legal side of things that Yasir is talking about, yes, those are, now facts also on record. But even politically, when you look at the way that this case was used, the way, I think this has also been said earlier on by the PMLN also, and overall, the way that the PTI and its leadership has used or maneuvered whatever has come, they've come across, whether those are facts, whether those are allegations, whether those are just mere, fissures of information, the way they've concocted them, the way that they've used them to build a picture, however false, is now coming to light. Do you agree?
Look, first of all, as a journalist, I don't agree with this very, very weak apology.
Okay.
Okay, they have apologized, very good. I mean, it is decided that this story was fabricated, but their apology is very, very weak, and it has no actually moral ground for that.
Okay.
They says, we are pleased to apologize for this error. I don't believe this was an error. I mean, I am in journalism for the last 34 years. Just start with the headline. The headline was saying it is a fabricated story using the two adjectives in only 9 words. One, poster boy, and then using steel with capital.
Okay.
So even when you read the headline, a normal person can understand this story is fabricated or is a loaded story. If not fabricated, it's a loaded story. And if you go through the story, there are only hearsay, only the data which had been provided by NAB to this David Rose when he came over here, and he had a meetings with the former Prime Minister. He had a meeting with his cabinet member. We had a photos, and he had a meeting with the NAB people. So this was the only one-sided version of the then government.
You're saying that, okay, we'll go into detail on what it should have been and the way that it is, the way you're explaining, but I want to go to Shahzad, I'll come back to you. But you think that overall, of course, there needs to be more needs to be done from the Daily Mail side, and this is not enough as far as, as far as apologies go. Ji, Shahzad, can you hear me?
Ji, I can, Mahrukh.
Shahzad, the press conference today by Mia Nawaz Sharif Saab, and the way that he spoke, the way that he clearly elucidated, the victimization that had been used by the former Prime Minister, the way that, cases had been concocted, from not only, he spoke about as far as, other leadership, but he himself, he spoke about his own cases, he spoke about, earlier on a hijacking case. In some detail, he talked about the way, things had been manipulated, things had been fabricated to make a false picture and present it. What does the PMLN purport to do about it? Are you going to go forward and move towards, legal action against the former Prime Minister? What do you purport to do? Or are you going to be conciliatory? Because there are reports of, talks with the opposition also. What is the overall status at this time?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you, Mahrukh. I think that our party head, Mia Nawaz Sharif's press conference was quite, self-explanatory and quite clear as to how things have been in the past. And the former Prime Minister especially has time and again used disinformation, has deliberately, himself and his party has deliberately spread disinformation, concocted stories. Today you've seen how Rana Sanaullah's case regarding the heroin drug case, and he was, set free by the court. And the witnesses also said that we have no clue why we were put to the witness stand, and we have no idea about the case, and we've never seen any drugs, any recovery of drugs. So this is just one example of how the political victimization was the linchpin of their, politics in the last 4 years. Going forward, when we took the government to, vote of no confidence in April this year, there was a basic, you can say tacit agreement on the fact that we will try to, for the moment at least, bring the country back on track. We genuinely believe that the hate politics that has been done in the last 4 years, the fake cases that were created, the way NAB was used for political victimization of not only politicians, but senior bureaucrats, businessmen who seem to be affiliated with opposition. Everyone was put on trial. And the consequence was that the whole country's machinery was jammed. No businessman was, ready to put in money in the country. No bureaucrat has been ready to do any work, which is their, even are hesitant to perform their basic duties. Because, if you put a noose around anyone and everyone, and there is no fairness or justice in the system, we saw how everybody stopped working, and as a consequence, the overall economy of this country went into a whirlpool and sank like anything. And we saw every institution being destroyed. Another example would be that of PIA. One, statement by the minister, one reckless statement, one disinformation actually rendered hundreds of our pilots jobless across the world and cut off PIA's access to most of the European world and also to the US. So, we decided that looking at their politics and learning from their politics, and, we decided that we will not go for any witch hunting. We will, the state of affairs in which we got this country was very critical. And we decided to put the country back on track first, and then, maybe get on to the political side of things. And we have surely paid a huge political capital in order to stabilize the economy. The landmines, I would say, that were put on by Imran Khan, risking the country's very backbone in terms of reducing oil prices and, multiple things that he did by also, violating the IMF contract. It was imperative that all of us together, put our heads down and just get to work. So this is what is on the agenda right now, primarily to stabilize.
So pursuant to that, Shahza, pursuant to that, are you going to, there is of course a lot that is being alluded to as far as talks at this time is concerned. Are there chances of talks moving forward? Because, of course, you're saying that, you're making all this effort for stabilizing the economy. And yet the other side is intent on causing political instability, which will then translate. Do you think that there's a chance that in that kind of background there can be some kind of a working relationship?
We've actually experienced trying to work with PTI and Imran Khan while we were in the opposition, whether it was the FATF, whether it was the Kashmir issue. The moment their government was formed, despite the fact that we genuinely believe that they came through a rigged election, we sat with them. We offered to sit with them, especially on the issue of economy. The now Prime Minister and then opposition leader Shahriz, in his maiden speech, offered to have some sort of, collaboration and sitting down on the economic issues that were faced by the country. But time and again, that offer was rejected. Every time we held a hand out, it was rejected. Not only was it rejected, when we sat with them for the FATF legislation, there were a lot of conversations that were done behind closed doors. And they had the audacity to come out on the floor of the House and lie about those conversations. They came out with the typical NRO narrative that they had. They came out and lied about us proposing NAB amendments. It was actually them who were proposing NAB amendments, and it was them who, later on also brought in 2 ordinances to amend the NAB law. And they, so every time that we've, in all sincerity and honesty, tried to sit with them and have a conversation or a dialogue on even national level issues, we've been rendered disappointed at every single level. And the way they lie through their teeth, and the way they spread disinformation, I don't think there's any element of trust left between us and PTI. It's politics at the end of the day. There's the option of dialogue is always there. It is the table on which we sit and have a conversation to resolve our issues. But at this point in time, at least, I don't see any thing moving forward in this direction. Maybe with their allies, maybe with other political parties, but not with PTI itself.
What about, Shahza, what about, you spoke about the allies. I know you have limited time before I move into the studio, but overall, as far as, you've mentioned talking to the allies, of course, we saw that statement from your party also saying that, that same CM Punjab can be offered to Pervez Elahi Saab from the PDM also. Do you think that there's a chance that things may change in Punjab in the federal government's favor?
Like I said, the option of dialogue and is always there because it is politics. We never close doors. And again, despite the fact what Pervez Elahi Saab and his son has done and the way they, completely took a U-turn on their commitment, despite that, I think there may still be room in terms of conversation with them. We've had old political ties with this particular political party, and there still may be room in that regard. But again, I would repeat that when it comes to PTI, I don't think that they have an ounce of integrity left in them on which we can rely and have a conversation with them.
Right. Thank you so much for being with us, Shahza. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mahrukh.
Agha Sahab, you were earlier talking about the Daily Mail and its story. Do you think that as far as the political situation is concerned, you heard what Shahza is saying. She's saying that, there seems little possibility of trying to reach any accord with the PTI at this time. Do you think that there's a, at this time, of course, with the focus on economy, the need of the hour is that there should be, some kind of a working relationship?
We are very pragmatic people, and you are very optimist, but I am not.
Okay.
Imran Khan is not ready to give a space to other people.
Okay.
And I don't consider him, I never consider him as a politician, I consider him as a pressure group, a cult leader. Cult leader doesn't give space to other people. They want everything on their agenda, on their term and condition. But in politics, politics is name of compromise. You leave some space for others and they leave some space for you. So I know there are parleys going on, of course, through the Presidential Office of Pakistan. But I think they would not they won't come with any fruitful results if Imran Khan would had the negotiation. Okay. So according to my understanding and my as a reporter, the government is, the PDM government has also offered, so today's opposition, first you constitute a senior politicians committee, we should start discussion minus elections.
Which is not something
minus elections before time.
Which is not something that the former Prime Minister is willing to do, because he says,
exactly.
Either talk about early elections or there are no talks. That's what seems to be the stance.
Secondly, nobody would go to Imran Khan. He shall have to come to the assembly where we have this public accounts committee meetings. He should come and he can sit, and then talks can start. Nobody would go to meet him at his place. This is decided by PDM. I'm talking to you as a journalist. Of course, I am not their spokesman. So, but according to my understanding. So, do you think Imran would ready to accept these two? His ego is stronger and bigger than any state, because he was crafted like that. He was crafted that he would be like a Greek prince or Greek goddess who would be beyond of everything, and everything would be under him, and his desire would be the last desire, and the whole world would work according to his desire. So he was crafted like that. So he is not ready to become a human.
Okay.
This is his problem.
Okay, let me come back to you. Yasir, overall, as far as the political, let's keep the political aside, as far as the legal situation is concerned, at this time, There are so many, you know, we saw Mia Nawaz Sharif also mention so many cases at this time pending against the former Prime Minister also. There are corruption allegations. There is also the matter of the Tosha Khana case. You know, there is talk of more jewelry and, you know, details surfacing pursuant to that. There are other cases also. Overall, how do you see his own standing at this time? There, he's alluded, you know, himself, he's alluded to, you know, the fact that he might be disqualified. Now and again, every time he speaks, he does mention. Do you think that he's himself legally strong at this time?
I think there are a lot of issues with his credibility.
Foreign funding is one of them.
Exactly, and that's foreign funding being the sword of Damocles that's actually on his head right now. But other things as well, like you mentioned, Tosha Khana issues or this watch selling activities that he has, obviously buying watches at very low price compared to their market price. So all of this is going to come back to bite him. I believe that it is going to be something that might eventually lead to disqualification. Now there's another thing that has happened in terms of there's a case in the Islamabad High Court which is, you know, I think should be of interest to people because that's potentially something that might blow up, is that before Justice Amir Farooq, there's a case that where the petitioner says that Mr. Imran Khan hasn't declared one of his children. And that itself would mean possible disqualification. So that is something that would come up at some point.
That's an additional case, you're saying that, right? But okay. But overall, the situation being what it is, do you think that there's, you know, the PTI, there has been this the demand for early election. Is that one demand that has been, he's tried it through the march that happened, the politics of agitation that preceded this, you know, call for dissolution of assemblies. Now he seems to be backtracking from that. We don't know whether he's actually going to go forward. You know, there doesn't seem to be a move. But there are reports that KP Assembly also has reservations. Punjab clearly does because it is an allied kind of government. Do you think, you know, there's nothing legally to prevent it from going ahead if Imran Khan Saab wants in KP? You know, because there's no problem, there's no bar there, right?
There's no bar. If the Chief Minister wants to dissolve the assembly, the constitution is very clear and there would be caretaker governments that would come up and there would be fresh elections in those provinces.
Right.
So this issue of, you know, that's the other thing that Prime Minister Imran Khan realizes, former Prime Minister, pardon me, he realizes that this, you know, he's just going to ultimately lose his two governments because there is no way to force a federal election simply because
of the provincial
elections.
And, there seems to be a categorical no from the PDM, from the federal government, saying that regardless of what he does with the provinces that he's in power in, they will continue. And if that does happen, what's the best case scenario? He again retains a majority, which he's already, you know, he already has. In Punjab, he might, do you think the situation is that kind that he may not, let me go to Haroon Saab with this. Haroon Saab, do you think that there is that kind of situation that he may not need his allies? He could also end up losing more seats because we've seen, you know, in the by-elections that he held 1 or 2 seats, he seems to have dropped every time there's been by-elections.
Look, by-election took place in July. We are talking in post 29th November scenario.
Right.
Things are changing every day. Most of them have changed. If today he goes for election, he would see that not only the PDM, rather all small political and bigger political parties have decided to contest him with a seat-to-seat base.
Okay.
Because every politician in Pakistan, except PTI and himself, understand this man is a danger for parliamentarian system. Because according to the understanding of many parliamentarians I meet every day, they were of the view, and this is what they say, Imran Khan decided to launch a presidential form of government through a referendum which he wanted to announce in last May.
Okay.
Because he wanted to roll it over everything, this parliamentarian system. Because according to himself, this 1973 constitution is not working, parliamentarians are corrupt, politicians are corrupt, and I mean parliament cannot work.
So what kind of system would he like?
Presidential form of government.
Okay.
He was doing everything. First of all, what they said, they made mockery of politicians and parliamentarian system, and they make actually parliament system or parliament as a byword of corruption.
Okay.
And they were very successful in that.
You're saying
No
the
doubt.
narrative overall has been right.
Yeah. So, but now parliamentarians and politicians understand how much he can be a danger for parliamentarian system. So they have, according to my understanding and I mean in my background discussion with them, they have decided to contest on every seat of PTI with seat to seat adjustment in a Pakistan People's Party, PMLN, JUI, and ANP, and every small and I mean bigger
But
party.
what do you think overall it's also because when we look at the overall by-elections that were held, the last by-elections we saw, Imran Khan Sahab won on the seats where he was himself contesting but lost on the 2 seats
No,
where...
no. If you talk about the provincial section of election in, I mean, of Lahore, I mean, the majority of the seat of the provincial
In
assembly
Multan, we saw
won.
the
But
PTI
majority
lose.
of the seat of the provincial government, we are talking about right now we are talking about the
But the
provincial. So
okay.
in the provincial government, the PTI got the maximum seat out of this by-election of July.
No, but I'm
Yeah.
saying out of where he's himself contesting, of course he won. But it's not necessarily true that where he can't contest, one expects from all seats by himself.
In provincial assembly, he did not contest with every seat. I mean, in provincial assembly, PTI put their candidate, and there was a. I mean, this is true. The
So what do
PTI
you-
got
so-
the
right.
maximum seat in, out of the I mean, provincial government.
But let's leave the, I mean,
yeah,
overall.
we go move
beyond
ahead.
that,
I
right.
told you this was not post 29th November scenario,
Okay.
and to my understanding, I may be wrong, I may be right, so I take the responsibility. Somehow or other, he was getting some power, some support from somewhere.
Okay. And that you're saying that the by-elections themselves
yeah.
may not be as, what
as
can one say?
neutral or as, I mean,
Yeah.
so
Okay.
now the things are changed.
So now the situation may be different, you're
Yes,
saying.
definitely it would be different. And one more thing, which I mean, reference to this, I mean, PML and member of parliament.
Ji, Shah Sahab.
This is my gut feel. Right now, the issue for all political party, particularly PMLN,
Is economy.
is economy, and I tell you, with my even PTI, I mean, majority of PTI is ready to come to sit together.
Okay.
But issue is Imran Khan, and PMLN or PDM is not ready to be compromised or to be blackmailed, even at the cost, if you talk about the Pakistan economy.
No, but when we talk about this, you know, again, before I go to Yasir, as far as rifts within the party are concerned, we've seen
Yeah.
the statement from KP,
Yeah.
where, you know, there is that not everybody is in agreement when Imran Khan Sahab talks about dissolution of assemblies. Of course, these people have come for a 5-year
Yeah.
term. They've come after elections, which is not an easy process. And nobody, you know, it's not necessarily true, like you said, that they would want to have, you know, leave their seats. That probably may be true for the National Assembly also, the way that he asked his party to resign.
Yes, absolutely. Look, Mahmood Khan is reluctant. So instead of talking himself, he has, I will place a SAF for that. And he's saying, I mean, there are 2 or 3.
There are people who
yeah.
might be, okay.
Look, Imran Khan doesn't understand problem of a chief minister. This budget 2022-2023 is released just 2 or 3 weeks ago. I mean, I'm talking about the development budget. So this government cannot go home without using infrastructure or development budget, because, you know, over 2,000 kilometer roads were affected by the floods in KPK also. So every government would try to utilize this budget, infrastructure budget and development budget, and then they wanted to go to election, and they also wanted to another budget, budget of 23-24. I mean, after June. Why should they go home when I mean the things are not in their control and the damage is done so much of the floods, and they were not in a position to help them because everybody was more busy in dharnas and the long march. So this is time they are meeting with their people, and look, every politician has to go again and again to his constituency, not
yes.
once in his lifetime. So realities are there, and Imran Khan has seen the reality. He was saying, okay, I'm going to, I mean, dissolve the assembly. As you mentioned yourself, why he's waiting for the KPK assembly? KPK assembly is in his hand. Why he's waiting for the 20th or 21st December?
Let me go to Yasir. I'll come. Yasir, this statement was made by the former Prime Minister, you know, in the heat of the moment. Was it not thought through? Was he expecting the government to, you know, perhaps react? That the way they haven't reacted when he said that, you know, dissolution will happen. Do you think that it was just him, you know, calling, trying to get them to react, so to speak?
You know, I've always wondered, you know, when Mr. Imran Khan was the captain of the Pakistan cricket team, he was a very thinking captain. He was a very good captain. But when it comes to politics, it seems that he doesn't think before he speaks. I feel that what he, and he didn't think this through. I don't think he was sure, he couldn't be. I mean, any politician in his place wouldn't be sure of his own allies. You know, that is just impossible to be sure of your allies, you know, in this case. So I don't think it was a well thought out statement at all.
But you know, there were statements from his allies at that time saying that they would stick with him, and you know, they would hold. How reliable? Again, you're saying, you know, perhaps it was not fortuitous for him to have relied on those statements. Moving on, as far as the Supreme Court is concerned, with Mian Nawaz Sharif Saab and his case and his disqualification, we've recently seen, would you agree that there's a trend in the Supreme Court to look at this absolute disqualification unfavorably? And you know, it's not, one can't rule it out that the Supreme Court would perhaps like things may, you know, change in the near future.
I believe so. I think first of all, this entire business of reading in punishments into the Constitution, you know, the judgment in 2017, in my opinion, was beyond the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. I say this very, very respectfully to the judges, but I believe that the Supreme Court overstepped its jurisdiction in 2017. I think that this the purpose of a constitutional court like the Supreme Court is to actually interpret the Constitution as it stands and not add to it. So this lifetime disqualification business is actually, in my opinion, completely bunkum. It's not the case. So ultimately, sooner or later, this is going to be either overturned by the Supreme Court or ultimately a constitutional amendment would overturn it or make it very clear that this is not lifetime disqualification. Lifetime disqualification doesn't make any sense.
Of course, but for this lifetime disqualification, for there to be a constitutional amendment, of course, any party would need 2/3 majority. And at this time, as far as, you know, if you look at the constitution of the assembly, the PTI is not there. Does any party have that kind of 2/3 majority?
No party has it, but that's why I said the first thing, I believe that at some point in the near future,
it might come from the Supreme Court.
Supreme Court is going to strike it down or change the punishment.
It is now the PMLN is saying that they expect Mian Nawaz Sharif Saab to return and lead the party for, you know, as preparing it for the polls to be held next year. And that will happen at this time pursuant. Will he need a protective bail? How will that work?
I believe so. I think he needs that because he's still, remember, he just traveled outside for medical purposes.
But there's no bar for him to return pursuant to a protective bail.
There isn't.
And you know, continue working. Another case against the former Prime Minister is him heading the party while he's facing the case.
Exactly. That's
how is that? You know, how do you look at that case, and how strong is it?
Well, as far as the Supreme Court judgment was very clear, he can't hold the party heads. He can't be the party head. That was something that the Supreme Court ruled on, and it was, you know, it's there. But there's nothing stopping him from acting as sort of a inspirational rahbar, as it were, you know, this leader sitting outside the parliamentary party.
But as far as, as far as we're talking about, the same will apply to Imran Khan Sahab also then.
If he gets disqualified, yes.
If he gets, then he will have to surrender his party presidency and
Yeah.
nominate someone else, which is
Exactly.
what earlier happened.
And that's the risk that we would see if PTI unravels or not after that, of course.
Okay, I will ask Agha Sahab to explain that statement before I come to you. You think that there are chances, there are fissures within the party? Because, you know, clearly, like we were earlier talking about, there are disagreements about Imran Khan Sahab's stance on returning to parliament, disillusion, things like this.
First of all, let me mention this thing. These stars of Imran Khan, which deals with what I can say, Thana Kachari, meaning by the courts. I think, you know, Imran Khan has a special, extraordinary stars who supports him.
Okay.
And I don't think, I mean, a man who was disqualified, but then, I mean, in a Tosha Khana case, he was disqualified by the Election Commission of Pakistan. But within some hours or maybe some days, he went again for an election. So just imagine the power of his stars. You know, everybody has some stars when we are born. So his stars, which are related with Thana Kachari, particularly court, they are very powerful. So I don't see his disqualification.
Based on the stars?
Yeah, based on star. Of course, based on star. How can I?
But overall, in terms of his legal standing, I think Yasser would say
legal standing for
to be very strong at all.
For legal standing, you can ask this question. He's basically a qualified person to comment. For a legal standing, he was disqualified. He was disqualified by the Election Commission. Already it is done.
It's done, yes.
It is done.
So why doesn't the government move forward against it then? I mean, if it has to be implemented, right?
When a court gave comments, you can go for election. So he used that comments and he went for election. So since I don't think that my stars are so strong, so I don't want to talk about Thana Kachari or the court. Let me come to the question you have made. I think Imran Khan would give his party leadership to his wife instead of any senior member of his party, if ever the situation arises.
Are you saying this because of the latest audio leaks? What is this?
No, this is what I think. Look, I have a background of 34 years of covering, political parties. He does not, and he has never trust anybody. This is his personality.
But I know that we're sort of transgressing a little bit, and we're talking about a scenario that hasn't manifested. But that would, holding a party together in that kind of, like Yasser also mentioned. The fact that his own party, you think that he'll be able to...
His party would accept. His party would accept her because she's a murshid for the party. She's grown as a murshid, not as a...
You think that there's no chance, there's no threat of disintegration within the PTI? A lot has been said.
People from the South Punjab, they may leave PTI later or sooner. Okay? But if you talk about the others, the KPK, I don't think any cracks in PTI. I'm a very simple, straightforward, honest journalist, and I should be, I should accept this reality, because in KPK,
but then you're saying, okay, so in that kind of scenario, you're saying that then PTI will remain a provincial party, so to speak, if we're talking only about KP. And, Punjab, of course, if South Punjab goes, or other, people within Punjab decide to go another way, that will be a blow to the PTI.
Yes, I agree with you. That would be a big blow. Look, we have seen in Pakistan when the RTS totally collapsed for 24 hours, not 48 hours. Even then, his party got only 82 seats. So, and in 82
but he's recently been talking about 2/3 majority.
We will see, because everybody has a right to, say
whatever they like.
Of course, he has every right. But when you talk about the realities, I believe if he gives his party to his wife, and he thinks everybody will stand over there.
It might not happen.
It might not happen, exactly. But I mean, his close people, very close circle, would accept her as a, you can say.
I don't think the Murshid from South Punjab is going to accept.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But
That is why I say a lot of South Punjab would definitely leave PTI then.
no, but overall, in terms of, you know, you all seem to have an uncanny lack of faith in South Punjab, but overall, I mean, the
No.
situation.
I'm so sorry, let me explain this
No,
point.
it's fine. I'm just saying, generally speaking, in terms of challenges to the PTI, in terms of challenges to the party, in terms of challenges to he himself, the former Prime Minister is facing those on a multiple front. Before I close, I'm running out of time. Isn't it perhaps a better approach now that he's done? He's done with his, I hope so, and you know, we all, I think, would hope so, that he is done with his agitational style of politics, calling dharnas, trying to get people together, marching towards Islamabad. And then the life attempt that has obviously regrettable, and everyone, I think, is sorry about the way, you know, of course, that it happened. But he's not, for him to back away from that style of politics and move towards a conciliatory style of politics would perhaps be a better approach now.
Yes, it would be, and it would be a massive U-turn, wouldn't it? I mean,
But you think that, don't you think that his people or his followers or his, you know, people would welcome that at this stage? He also risks exhausting his own people. Isn't that true?
I think so. I think he has lost. I believe that a number of people within the PTI are now thinking that this has gone on too long.
Okay.
And
so
I think the Trump model is going to work here. Remember, Trump with the latest US elections turned out to be a massive failure. I think that's how the PTI is now looking at Imran Khan as well.
Okay. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for joining us. On that note, thank you for being with us, Agha Iqrar Haroon Saab, Barrister Yasir Lateef. Thank you for joining us, Shaza Fatma Khwaja. Thank you for being with us. Overall, of course, you know, when we look at the overall picture at this time, certainly it seems that the PTI faces numerous challenges, both on the legal front, political front, for the cases that are now unraveling, you know, right before everyone else. We are seeing, you know, as far as the PMLN leadership is concerned, Mia Nawaz Sharif Saab, other leaders like Rana Sanaullah Saab, all of, you know, them being exonerated step by step. It seems that perhaps there are troubled waters as far as the PTI is concerned, as far as their leadership is concerned. And again, perhaps now would be a time for there to be a different, perhaps a different kind of approach to the kind of aggressive stance, aggressive approach that we've seen the former Prime Minister and his followers have till now since March. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.